In a world where justice is supposed to be blind, there are those who believe the scales are tipped in favor of the powerful. The ones who are meant to protect us are often the ones who cause the most harm. The police force, sworn to serve and protect, have become a symbol of fear and mistrust for many. And the court system, designed to ensure justice for all, has failed time and time again. But there are those who refuse to be silenced, who fight for change, and who demand accountability. Join our host, former Texas police officer and major crimes detective, Justin Carlson, on a journey through the darkness as he shines a light from his extensive 14 years of experience on police injustice and the failed court system. And as he speaks with the many others who have also experienced injustice. This is Failing Justice.
Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the Failing Justice podcast. I am your host, as always, Justin Carlson, and I have my unofficial co-host.
Yeah, we're
Preston Green with me.
Still unofficial.
Yeah, man. So just want to welcome everybody to the show tonight. We had taken a week off for Thanksgiving, which was nice. Had a little break with the fam, and got to enjoy some good food. And I hope everybody else had a good Thanksgiving and enjoyed their time off. If you got it, hopefully. Did you have a good Thanksgiving? We actually never talked about that.
Yeah.
I think we did. I think you said something about you slept a lot.
I slept for about 3 days straight.
Yeah. Much needed.
Yeah.
Much needed.
It's my hobby.
Yeah, I love sleep. I know you and I talk a lot, and depending on what's going on in my life, I feel like I get, like 6. I'm a 6 to, I would love 8 hours, but I'm a minimal 6 guy, so I don't know where you lie in that.
Well, my day-to-day, I would say I probably operate on about 2 to 3.
Yeah, that's a problem.
It's not healthy.
It's probably because you drink that C4.
Well, I'm just trying to get them to sponsor this podcast,
That would be nice.
Yeah, it would.
I tell you all the time that stuff's not good for you, but.
Yeah, well.
So I mean, it's obvious. I'm going to have to point it out, but as you can see, we are back in Dallas, at our studio in Dallas. We had a brief, we tried to go elsewhere, and it didn't quite work out the way we would have liked it to work out.
Well, I think we discovered that we're not video or audio producers.
Yes. We actually, what we thought was, hey, let's go over here to this other studio because we could kind of set all this stuff up on our own, save a couple bucks, closer drive, and it just didn't work out the way we. So, nothing against that studio. It's cool.
Yeah, it's a pretty cool
place.
Yeah,
but just not for us. And thank you to Hello Studios for having us back, because they definitely didn't have to take us back. They've been super cool, and we're glad that we came back home, and they welcomed us home like the prodigal son with open arms.
Yeah.
So
greatly appreciated.
Yeah. And just for everybody listening, I'm just gonna go ahead and, we talk about, we've talked about it a lot, and we'll continue to talk about it a lot. Probably almost every podcast we do is talk about vulnerability and honesty. I'm just going to be real with everybody tonight. We don't have any agenda. We don't have any show notes. So there are a couple things on my mind that I didn't want to discuss that's been on my mind this week. But before I get into that, I'm pretty excited. I'm pretty excited because tomorrow in the morning, bright and early, 6:25 as a matter of fact, I'll be flying to New York to go to the they're having a summit out there, the United Justice Coalition Summit. And all that is just a bunch of people gathering that are for bettering the criminal justice system, criminal justice reform. And there's going to be a lot of heavy hitters there. And I'm really excited to go to that. I'll be honest with you, though. I don't know how many law enforcement are going to be there. So I watched last year's seminar, and there were a lot of good people doing a lot of good things that were on the panels and the some of the discussions. But I think what makes us unique is that we share a lot of those same views. Like when you hear leading up to the last 2 years of my life, when I heard the word criminal justice reform, that was like, to me, when I heard that, I was like, that's the craziest thing. Like, what does that even mean? What do you mean, And it wasn't until these things started happening to me and I started opening my eyes that I was like, we need criminal justice reform.
Yeah. I think it's more of like you didn't see the value in what the words carried no value to you at that time.
Man, it was like within law enforcement there was a stigma attached to it. When you're not going to go in the squad room and sit down with your buddy Joe and say, we need criminal justice reform, because they can look at you and think, what are you talking about, dude?
Yeah,
that's not something that you just spoke about when you just to be honest, and it's tapping the political realm a little bit. When you heard criminal justice reform, I always thought that was just some left-wing, liberal, awful, ridiculous word, and it didn't have a lot of value and meaning to me for the longest time, and that's just because of the culture. We talk about the culture; it just wasn't there.
Yeah, I would say for me, when I heard that, or when I thought of criminal justice reform, I didn't necessarily apply it to the law enforcement side of things, like the day-to-day and what we do. I looked at it and I guess applied it more towards the actual prosecution side, the trial procedures, and then even into the the prison systems and things like that. But never, I guess it was just a biased opinion I had, and
that's exactly what it is, man.
And never realized how it could apply to us and active law enforcement.
But that's one of those things, like going from going back to the police academy days. Anytime I ever heard criminal justice reform, it was on like TV. Never once can I sit here and remember, I guess I can't say it never happened, but I don't remember ever hearing anybody, instructors, agency administrators, FTOs, supervisors. I never heard anybody say anything about criminal justice reform. I don't know if you had the same experience, but
yeah, I would say that it was talked about because every time there's a mandated legislation change and it requires us to take a certain training class, we would talk about it, and most of the time it wasn't.
We were talking trash about it.
Yeah, it wasn't a positive conversation,
Yeah.
And kind of just sitting there like, well, why do we have to do this? Well, it's people trying to do criminal justice reform and not realizing or not seeing the value in it. And so I would say that I've been exposed to the conversations, but not fully understanding.
Well, it's like our buddy Richard Miles, like he, the Richard Miles Act. That's a form of reform. Like,
Yeah.
And to hear him say he had law enforcement on the other side of the aisle fighting against that, fighting against it's like the Michael Morton, which is Richard Miles Act, essentially the same thing as the Michael Morton Act. Like, hey, as law enforcement, you have to turn in everything that you have, all the way down to your field notes that you've written in your pocketbook. Like, everything that you have has to be turned over to the prosecution, for discovery, and that's what Richard Miles went to bat for. And then he's got a sea of law enforcement on the other side talking about nah. Like, that's crazy to me.
Well, I don't understand why. I don't understand that, because, through the academy, through my FTO process, my entire career, it's always been harped on, even by, people who have been on the job for 10, 15 years. When I was coming on, that was something they would always say: make sure you keep everything. Don't ever throw nothing away. Keep your pocketbooks. So I guess I would be confused on what the disgruntlement there was, because it was already something that, at least I'm aware, that we were being preached to do, is keep that information, maybe turning it over. Well, why would you have an issue with turning that over if you're already keeping it?
Yeah, and I was trying to look here and I couldn't see, and I can't remember when the actual Richard Miles Act was went into legislation, but I would say that criminal justice reform has always been, to me, just something that I guess I didn't understand it, and it kind of saddens me a little bit, because I try to think back to, like, what if, and we can what if to death, and I'm a full believer everything happens for a reason, but my thing is, like, what if I would have had these same thoughts and these same beliefs, and my eyes would have been opened and my mind changed and my heart changed, years ago. But I guess I've thought about that, and my own answer to my own question is, I think it was because, going back to, I think everything happens for a reason, at the right time. And I know that sounds like just cliche and spiritual, but, like, I really believe we go through every single thing we go through. And the problem is in the moment we don't realize it. Like, we don't know why this is happening. Like, why am I going through this trial? Why am I, experiencing this? Why does this suck so bad? Usually it's not till later, way later, that you look at it and you say, I am now on the path that I'm supposed to be on, and I wouldn't have been on this path had A, B, C, and D not happened. And so my thing is, I think I had to go through everything that I went through, all the bad, the ugly, in law enforcement, in the good, all things collectively, to have the mindset that I have now, to be able to have, started failing justice and be flying to New York City tomorrow to meet with a bunch of people that I promise you, dude, 5 years ago, I would have said, you're nuts.
Yeah.
If somebody would have said, hey, you're going to be going to the UJC summit in New York City and talking about criminal justice reform, I would have flat out said, you're full of crap. So I do think that, for me, it came up at the right time, when it was supposed to. But I believe that it is now my job, our job, to take what we know, what we've experienced, and what's right, and push it out there. And I go back to what I said when I first started this conversation was, I watched the whole thing from last year, and Whether law enforcement was there or not, there was at least nobody. I think they had like maybe it was the New York Attorney General. I think maybe that was,
Yeah.
but I mean like, people like myself and you, boots on the ground law enforcement that are kind of nobodies tucked away in the corner that are just trying to make a difference. I don't know how many law enforcement people will be there. Be interested to see how that goes. I might be surprised. There might be a ton of them there, but I'm really interested to see kind of how that goes.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I'm excited you're getting to go. I look forward to hearing about it and kind of debriefing it afterwards. I think that the biggest thing is I think that, the common, when you talk about criminal justice reform and law enforcement, the perspective, the common thought process is sometimes us versus them
Oh yeah,
mentality. And I say that from the standpoint of like, it's us in defense of them, people who are trying to change how we do our job or things like that, instead of and it, from straight out the gate, that mentality should never be there. It's not a us versus them. It's we're here to serve. So immediately creating that difference, it's hard to overcome. So
yeah, and it always has been us versus them, at least that I have in my experience. And I know I always say this, it's hard to blanket everything. Everybody didn't have the same experiences. I had some pretty terrible, listen to my, first 4 or 5, 6 episodes of my podcast, you'll know, like, I had some freaking terrible experiences. Now it came, and I think I started to experience those things because, something within me clicked. And I was like, this isn't right. What's going on isn't right. And it just made me look deeper.
I call that a moral compass.
Yes. But my head was in the sand, man, for years. For years and years and years. And it was always the us versus them. And one of the things that I have, it has been freeing, actually. It's just listening to the other side of things. Because, law enforcement officers, individuals, like, we don't like change.
No.
We don't like the new legislative update comes out every 2 years, and we're like, dang it, I hate taking this 4-hour course, and I've been very guilty of just clicking through the material and like, this is ridiculous. Give me to the test, because it's common sense. Give me to the test, and not really paying attention to it. But one thing that I've really enjoyed is getting to hear the other side. Because for so long I was just in my own world, my own bubble, and none of this stuff, I didn't care about it. It didn't make sense to me. I lived, breathed, ate being a cop, and catching bad guys, no matter what that meant, no matter what that looked like. And I don't mean unethical, but there are things when I look back on my career, I'm like, that kind of is unethical, but not because I was like that was in my heart, like deceit and it was just what the
practice and procedure.
That's what I know. That's what they taught me to do.
Yeah.
And you pull and these are my personal beliefs. I have the right to say what I believe, but you pull somebody over and they have, a little marijuana pipe, and there's like this much marijuana, and well, you're going to jail. I don't care what the circumstances are. And I look on that and I'm just like, why did you know, obviously it's illegal. Okay, I get it. It's still illegal in this state, but my perspectives have just changed so much, and just being able to listen to the other side and see their perspective and say, oh, you know, like that really makes sense. I see what you're saying. I see how we can do better.
Yeah.
And that's been really, honestly, that's been really freeing for me to be able to do that. And it feels good.
Yeah.
I don't know what your thought is on that, but
I mean, I always think it's interesting because when we get to talking about this, you know, the example you just brought up about the traffic stop, a little bit of marijuana. I've always felt like the different one in the group, you know, coming up through my career, because from the start, I've never been honestly like interested in, I guess I would say, like the hunt, or like to find somebody doing something wrong, or like dude, even I'll be honest, like even when I first started like in FTO, like I had this like hesitation to just write somebody a ticket. Like I didn't want to pull cars over that were speeding just 5-10 miles an hour, because to me, I'm just like, well, I mean, I do that on the way home. I'm not going to be a hypocrite. So like, I've never really had that that mindset. And I think what the difference there is like, for me, I never had any intention into coming into this profession. Like, it's not, I didn't want to, like, I didn't strive to do it. It's not, I just always say, like, it chose me. Versus like your history on your career, you started out in the jail at 18, and then you came from a family of law enforcement. So like you grew up seeing that, and I think that's where a big part of the culture plays too, generationally.
Mm-hmm.
I think for me, it was easier for me to have a different mindset coming in because I didn't have that generation on like personal generational knowledge of how law enforcement conducts business. I really came into it going, I'm just going to be me. I'm going to be human. Like, I guarantee you, like, half the stuff I'm going to go out here and deal with, like, I've dealt with it personally before in my own life.
Yeah.
So that was always the approach that I took.
And that goes back to, man, like, our, whatever biases that we have, it all comes into play with, like, how we kind of got in this conversation a little bit the other day, like how we were raised. We got into that. We got in that pretty deep.
Yeah,
I don't think we're gonna get that deep tonight, but I was, I was raised very in a very structured, extremely structured, household that you walk the line. We're talking just and also from when you have a whole family of law enforcement, right? Like, that's another thing. Law enforcement and a preacher as a dad, very sheltered, just a black and white, no gray. Right is right. This is right because it's this way. This is wrong because it's this way. And then at 18 years old, I hit the jail and I'm ready to make the world a better place. Like, you're doing something illegal. Oh, by God,
save the day.
Yeah, you're going to pay for it. And then I hit the police academy, And all those old school guys, like that's what they taught, you know, because that's what they've known. And it took me so long to realize that a lot of things that I was doing was wrong. And what's crazy about it is the things that I was doing, it would have been easier for me just to keep doing them.
Yeah, because it's not.
Because this.
It's what you're taught. It's not against policy or procedure, and it's not necessarily illegal.
Right.
It goes back to the more simple question that we should ask ourselves every time we make a decision. Is this the right thing to do?
Yeah.
You know, like I firmly believe like there is no policy or directive that can be given to answer that question for every situation we come across. But I mean, it's just, I don't think it's possible.
No, and you're right. And I think it was over the weekend. I wish I would have had it pulled up, but I don't. Over in Tyler, Smith County, I was scrolling, and they have this Facebook page. It's called Busted Newspaper, and like everybody that gets arrested within the county.
It's like a mugshot thing.
Yeah, they post the mugshot.
Yeah.
And I've liked that page for a long time, so occasionally come across my feed as somebody on Busted Newspaper, and there's been people on there that I've known, but I was coming across this one, and it was gosh, I wish I would have thought about this before tonight, but it was like 70 something years old guy. I was in mid 70s, pushing 80. Had his overalls on. I mean, old guy, you know. And I'm like, what did this guy get arrested? I saw it had like 154 comments. And there's not usually, when you see that there's a lot of comments under one of those, you know, it's usually good. So I'm going in there and I'm snooping the comments because sometimes they're funny, you know. And first off, before I look at the comments, I click and I was like, what did this guy get arrested for? And it said possession of marijuana under 2 ounces.
Get out of here.
And unlawful carrying of a weapon.
Because of the marijuana?
Because of the marijuana. So
get out of here.
So 70, I think he was 76.
Nah.
76 years old.
I need proof.
I'll show you. I'll have to.
You can show me later.
I'll have to show you later. But I looked at that and I said, possession of marijuana under 2 ounces. 76 years old. He had a gun that he's probably carried for the last 40 or 50 years, maybe in his truck or in his overalls pocket or something, you know. And I'm sitting here going, exactly what you said. Like, capability does not justify action.
Just because you can doesn't mean you should.
Yes. And I'm like, who? I couldn't see what agency it was. And I don't care. If I knew, I'd call him out. Whether it was Tyler PD, Smith County, Troop, Bullard, I don't know who it was. But one of those agencies, an officer decided, hey, let me arrest this 76-year-old for possession of marijuana under 2 ounces. And then, let me go ahead and just add this other charge because, you know, you can add if you have a weapon while you're committing a crime other than a traffic violation, you can be charged with the weapon. And I'm like, who would have made this decision? What supervisor would have approved this? I don't understand, you know, and that's just like you said, you can't. Is it wrong? Is it illegal? Absolutely, it's wrong and illegal. It's in black and white. Marijuana is still illegal. There's still a unlawful carrying of a weapon enhancement. But why?
Let me throw this at you, though. I'll spin it. Because I do agree, like, at face value, those facts, like, if that's what occurred, let's say it's a routine traffic stop, pull them over, odor marijuana. You know, I hate this. Oh, that's PC.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, letter of the law. Odor marijuana, search the vehicle, whatever. Find
Cops love to search a car.
Find. And that's the result of it. And that's it. Then that's where I'm like, get out of here. Like I'm not going to do that. And somebody would ask, why?
And we shouldn't.
And the reason why I wouldn't is because I would not go arrest my grandfather for that. So I'm not about to arrest somebody else's. But I'll throw a spin on it. We don't know the backstory. We don't know if there is any other crime or person of interest, or there would be certain situations where if I saw that, but
Can we
more,
get in our first argument on the podcast? Because I'm not sure we got in one yet. I think that's crap. Let me tell you why.
All right.
Because we argue. It's fine. While I agree with that a little bit, because you're right, we technically we don't know. In this profession for years, whenever I question something, I see something that's like, that don't look right, The first thing any cop will stand up and say is that right there. Well, you don't know what was going on. And I mean, okay.
No, I was trying to make a different point. So you're trying to start an argument with this. Yeah, we can get an argument on the podcast, but you're going to let me finish my train of thought first.
Okay.
All right. I'm just messing with you, man. No, because I know where you're going with that, and that's not where I was going with it.
Because I do agree with that, because the documentary I sent you that we're going to talk about soon, about George Floyd, I have yet to say anything about George Floyd because I didn't know the backstory. Everything was weird, right? Because there always is a backstory. But what I was getting at was just...
like there's always an immediate defense to what we're... And we're going to defend what we do.
Yeah.
Where I was going is, there are situations where you would... Yeah, I'll go extreme. Say this man was a person of interest in a really bad crime, maybe a crime against a child or something like that. Just got done with the interview. Detective's still working on finishing up a warrant or something, but like we know we got enough. But something could happen between now and then, but he needs... The person needs, and where I'm going with that is, one, I call that doing the Lord's work when we have to operate in the spirit of the law, because you're doing it for the right reasons. That's why I say, and I stand by, there is no policy or directive that can fulfill the instinct of just doing the right thing for the right reasons at the right time.
But that has...
And that's a change in... That's a change in heart.
Yes.
Well, I wouldn't say change. You can't change.
Because you have somebody like me that did that for the longest time.
Yeah, that's an influence. And I think the only way you can do that is by action. And by proving and showing the value in that. And that goes both ways, internally within organizations and externally, because you need buy-in for both, right? Mm-hmm. Because I'm sure that there's a lot of people that would listen to what I just said and go, well, that's not right. That's not right. Why would you do that? I mean, you're basically, kind of going against what you talk about. Like you're using your power, or you're using something when you're sitting here saying that you shouldn't arrest somebody for that. Like, that's crazy. And then you'll spin it and go, well, but there could be times where you would utilize those tools. Mm-hmm. And that's why I say, I am saying that. I'm saying that, like, in this job, every decision you make is not easy, and it's not a one-size-fits-all. So that's why you have to have a moral compass. You have to hold value in doing the right thing, and hopefully your heart's in the right place.
And that goes back to who we hire, right? Because
it's key.
Why are you getting in this job? You sit down in an interview, what is your reasoning for wanting to be a police officer? Like, why do you want to come to work here? And, you know, I've said this a million times. When I was 18, I wanted to do it because it was cool, you know? And I grew up watching cops in my family. I grew up watching cops on TV. I mean, just, it was all around me. And I was like, this is awesome. I want to make my family proud. They would be proud of me that I go and I do what they did. And maybe that's normal. You know, I don't expect, I was 18, dude. I was still learning life. Matter of fact, I haven't even experienced life, if we're being honest.
Yeah.
I was so sheltered. I only knew one thing. I was more sheltered than the average.
Yeah.
And so I didn't know squat diddly. So it's at a young age like that, I would say your reason why isn't always, it'll evolve over time. But, you know, when you have one officer jump from one agency to another, and you ask that question, you have an experienced officer in there and say, you know, why you want to come work here? And
because I enjoy the chase.
And so like, you know, some of the answers that immediately red flags. I just want to teach the younger generation, you know, and I got a problem with that. I like to listen to those answers. You and I have both been on many of hiring boards, and I like to listen to that answer because to me, that will tell, like, you can hear the person's heart if it's there.
Oh yeah.
When they're giving that answer.
That's the only answer I care about the entire time.
It really is.
To be honest with you.
Yeah.
And because I mean it when I ask it, I hold value in that question. I hold value in the why. Why do you want to do this? Why do you want to be in this profession? Why do you want to be a cop? And you know, I'd go back and to kind of comment on something that you said about, you know, 18, you thought it was cool, your family did it. I don't think that's wrong.
No, not at that age.
And I'll be honest, I don't think it's wrong to
but some people never evolve from that.
Never evolve from that being all they hold value to, is that it's cool. Because I'll tell you, it is cool. It is a cool profession to be in. It's honorable. It's noble. You get to do fun stuff sometimes, right? If you like adrenaline, like, you know, sign up, because there's plenty of it.
Yeah.
But there's so much more than just that. And I would agree that I think that a lot of people do get caught up on that. But I'll tell you something. I think the majority of police officers out there, there's more to it than just that. And I don't think that we take the time to listen, ask the right questions to find out why. We don't make it a comfortable environment to have the real raw conversations of why you want to be a cop. And a lot of people don't want to maybe talk about their upbringing. Because I think I said this last podcast when we were talking about mental health. I don't think I've yet to meet an officer, get into a good heart-to-heart conversation, and come out of it and go, yeah, dude's had some life experience, right? Like something's happened. And I think that's what drives.
What do you mean? Like, what are you referring to? What? Like, conversation with who?
Like any police officer, like, had a conversation about, you know, we talk about their upbringing or what they did before they were a cop, or just, you know, something. I think that a majority of the conversations I've had, if I take that time to get down to it, I will find that they have experienced something in life that has impacted them a lot.
That's because we don't take the time to get to know. You know, we'll have an interview in law enforcement when you're hiring somebody, and every agency is different, but personal experience in my career. You'll call somebody in for an interview. It's kind of rigid, like formal. You've got your list of questions, and you have to go, question by question by question, and you're trying to write down what they say, but are you really listening to what they say? And I feel like, in the hiring processes, we're taking too much time freaking conducting polygraphs. I think polygraphs are the biggest sham on the planet.
Don't get me started.
I'm trying to watch my
those.
language, because when I start to think about polygraphs, I get irritated, because I've seen how they are deceptive themselves, and they're not used for that. We spend so much time. Can you drag this dummy? And dude, physical fitness is important. Okay, I'm not saying it's not. But what I'm saying is we spend too much time, I think, on the wrong things. And really and truly, when you sit down with somebody and you have a conversation with them, an in-depth, like you just said, conversation, and you ask the important questions, and you try to get to know that person, know their heart, know their background. Like us as an agency, if we're hiring somebody, we need to get to know that person. And it's got to go beyond just one single interview. It's got to go beyond, having somebody do a background on them and then hand us a piece of paper. We're not getting to know these people and their heart and what they are about and what they are going to bring to our agency. And when we do that, when we start to do that, then I think we will see change, because it's all about the people and the hearts, who you're bringing in, who's going to interact with the public.
Yeah, and I would also add that I'd probably be willing, bet a couple C4s on it. That's gold, right? If you were to take that time and have those conversations, right, and I believe even if you're talking to an officer or somebody wanting to get into this profession, that at the time they have the mindset of it's cool, all that other stuff that we talked about. But if you take that time to have those conversations, it also allows you the opportunity to show them the value in, hey, but I think that you also might be interested in doing it because of these other reasons. Because what you just told me right there, you know how you can apply that here? When you weren't a cop, you know how you can apply that? Or tell me about something that you struggled with in life, or a hard decision that you made personally that cost you something personally. Okay, so do you know how you can hold value in that experience and apply it out there in the field to somebody who's, I promise you, going through something similar, and you create that opportunity to do what we're talking about, and that is influencing the change of, the why, and teaching the value of doing something for the right reason, and showing the reward and the benefit. And I say that we've got to get the buy-in internally and externally.
Well, because I was thinking while you're talking, some of the things you said made me think about this. Like, what started this conversation was criminal justice reform.
Yeah.
Or some of the biggest strides that could be taken in the criminal justice reform fight. People want to have criminal justice reform this far up. We need to have criminal justice reform back here, because I've always said this. especially with talking to these exonerees that I've met, it all starts here. Because again, it's like a domino.
Yeah.
You set up a whole line of dominoes right here. You push this one down, the rest are going to fall. It has to start at the very beginning. And the truth of the matter is, law enforcement is that first domino. We are the first line of contact every single time. And it starts, take it even a step further back, is within, internally, getting it right there, so that way, that's the reform where we got to start. We got to start on our end, because it would alleviate so many problems up on this side if we started here.
Yeah. And we got to change our perspective on our end within the organizations. We've got to redirect our priorities and value to the people that are going to be having those first interactions.
Mm-hmm.
Because quite frankly, like, that's the thing that matters. Both, and there's benefit for the community and the organization if we redirect our energy, our priorities, influence and the change that we want to see, we redirect that to the people that are out there, boots on the ground, working the midnight shift. That's where we have to start, not focused on the other things that do matter within organizations.
A lot matters,
But it's not the most important part of it.
Yeah.
I always say, within a police department, you got multiple divisions, right? So you'll have administration, investigations, and then within the investigations, you'll have, then you branch off into your property crimes, people crimes, narcotics. Like, there's just so many moving parts. The heartbeat of any organization is patrol. There is no, nobody can tell me anything else that will convince me otherwise, because the reality of it is, you're wrong. CID is not working and answering radio calls.
Right.
When the, if you want to look at it as a customer service based industry, the customer requesting the service is
it's the citizen,
and calling 911 or whatever however the interaction starts, they're going to get patrol 99% of the time, straight out the gate. So I hate when departments don't focus. When patrol is the heartbeat of the organization, you need to spend a majority of your time focusing on that. That's where you need to be influencing the things we're talking about. You need to be taking care of those people. Everything else in the department, all the way up to administration, is a support function. We can do without tomorrow.
Mm-hmm.
Can't do without a patrol officer.
Well,
why
do you think when there's a holiday rolls around, guess who's off? CID, investigations, admin, support services, professional standards. All these people are the people that get the holidays off.
Yeah, I don't agree with that.
Patrol doesn't get the holidays off because they have to be there.
They can, yeah.
And you're right. Like they're.
And that's where you start. I got on that because you talked about a domino effect, and like we're focusing on it here.
Mm-hmm.
We need to be focusing on it within the organization. I take it a step further. We need to focus on the officers on the front lines. Like, that's, if you want to start changing, you want to reform the way we're doing things, that's where you have to start.
Because You're right, man. And I don't think that's a strange perspective to the general public because they cannot
Well,
they
they don't
can't
know
they
that-
cannot grasp that.
Yeah, they don't know the inner workings.
They have all they know is when they call somebody and this person shows up and they screw them over or do something wrong, it's going on TikTok, it's going on YouTube,
Yeah.
and it is incumbent upon us as administrators again to start getting it right way over here.
Mhm.
Not only with just how you treat people. I mean, I totally, obviously, I agree with that completely. But who you hire, and then once you hire the right people, then you take care of those people. You cultivate that relationship. Because if that person's not okay, we talked about this before. If that person's not okay and they're having a crappy day because maybe something they're dealing with at home, or maybe there's some turmoil within the department, or their dog got ran, whatever the case may be, if we're not making sure, like when shift starts, where are you at in your headspace right now?
Yeah.
Are you able to go out here and deal with, God forbid, a school shooting, a traffic accident where you see a dead child? Can you, right now, in your headspace, where are you at? You have to take care of those people, and it's you have to hire the right people first, because like we've harped on so many times, is it's the heart. You can't make somebody have that heart.
No.
You maybe over time, if you can influence them and you have the right people that are spending time with somebody. But the thing of it is, if your heart isn't there,
I can't teach you to care.
yeah,
I can't teach. That's something that you can't teach. I can 100% help you discover that.
yeah.
You might not know it exists. I can help you tap into that. I can help show you the value in that by having those conversations, and first and foremost by my actions. That goes, that you can rabbit trail on that into leadership and just being a servant leader. That's just something you can't teach, but I can help you discover it if it's there.
Yeah.
But I can't put it there.
You're right. And again, same with leadership. I've said it, and there's books, there's studies. I believe leaders are just naturally born. It's like maybe they don't know it, and it lies dormant within them. But like you said, you can help them. You can tap into that, and they're like, oh, and you see them grow. You see them become good. And you're right. And it's the same thing with heart. I mean, it's either there or it's not.
Yeah.
And you can, I've met, I don't know how many cops over the years, hundreds, thousands, and I can usually tell within, you sit me down with a cop right now and give me 45 minutes to an hour, I can tell you whether they have heart or not. It's pretty easily discoverable, especially coming from somebody like me, who I say I have heart. I know I have heart, and not that somebody should think exactly the way I think, but it's not hard to tell when you're sitting down, talking to a police officer or a prosecutor or a judge or whatever, somebody within the criminal justice system, whether they are there to be servants, the public servants that they took an oath to be. You can tell.
Yeah. What do you think? So I'll tie that back into we were talking about childhood. I was talking to you about. Most of the time when I talk to these officers or somebody in the profession, if I spend the time, then I'll find something that I can tie to why they would have that. What in your opinion, what do you think is the leading contributing factor to the why, to having that heart, or knowing it exists, knowing it's there, being able to tap into that? What do you think enables a person to do that?
To have the why to do what we do.
The why to do what we do, but for the right reasons, and making decisions from the heart.
I think there's a lot of factors that would play into that. I mean, it does start with childhood. Everything that happens, and if you've ever been in therapy, and I know you have because we talked about it. I've been in therapy, but if you've ever been in therapy and you're having a struggle with something, every single time it goes back to your experiences as a child.
Yeah.
Because what happens is, and I'm no psychiatrist or psychologist here, but I know enough about it to say what happens is you continue those behaviors. And if you never deal with them, and some people don't know how to deal with them. Some people don't know that the way they behave or the way they act or the way they think falls back to how they were raised. And if you don't deal with those things and you go into adulthood and you become a cop and you go hit the streets and say you had a rough childhood and you just continue that toxic behavior. It's a generational curse. You didn't change that. And you go out here and you have an anger problem and you use excessive force on somebody just because maybe somebody used excessive force on you. Yeah. But then on the flip side of that, I say in contrast, you have people who go through those things and they come out of it. They realize, hey, this wasn't right. They seek therapy or they heal from those problems. And so they can take that experience and apply it when they go on the street or they interact with somebody, because they have that heart, they have that experience, and it isn't out of anger. They understand it. I don't know if that makes sense or even answers your question, but it wasn't until I was probably, I'll be 35 next weekend, and it's really kind of embarrassing to say, I guess, but man, it wasn't probably until I was 31 that I realized, hey, I've had some things that, some really toxic behaviors that has led to the way I've done things.
Yeah.
Not only personally but professionally. I need to deal with them.
Yeah.
There was always a stigma attached to therapy, therapy's, not, you're not a man if you go to therapy. You're weak, especially within law enforcement. We talked about mental health our last podcast, and so you never really get to the point. Sometimes people never really get to the point to where they're like, okay, I have a problem. They just continue the toxic behavior and it never changes. Yeah. And I can say, man, by the grace of God, I changed, and I think I said this once before too. My ex-wife can sit down in this room and tell you, like, he changed. A lot of the experience, I can't explain it, man. Really, I say the grace of God, because one day, man, just a light bulb, it just clicked, and I was like, I got to change the way I am, not only for myself, but for my boys. Like, I need them to see me be a certain way to, because I don't want them to see my behavior and think that that's okay. So things happen in life all along your journey, I think, that evolve that why.
Yeah.
Whatever it may be. I think as you can't expect somebody so young, men take longer to develop anyway,
Yeah.
Than women do. Their men's mind, like, we're pretty ignorant until 30-ish, and sometimes even years after. But, I just think those experiences as you go along through life should and hopefully change your why, and tying that back into law enforcement.
And the heart.
The heart, man.
Or help you discover
Yeah.
the why you have that.
I know it's
heart.
kind of a long,
No,
kind of a rabbit trail. I don't know if I made any sense, but
Yeah. So where I was going with that, I think we can sum the question up. We talk about a lot of things. We throw different things out there. We talk about leadership, decisions cops are making, criminal justice reform. We need to change the way we're doing things. And I think, we offer these examples, talk about how we do things, how we select officers. And, I'm just going to summarize it to, if you want to ask me to define a good cop, somebody who would be good at the job or doing the things for the right reasons, right? So, and what it takes, or what that would look like. I think for me, it's kind of what you just talked about. All those things. It's a very deep and complicated answer. The simple answer is something I think it takes to be a good cop, or the good cops out there are the damaged ones. I don't mean that it can apply to something they've gone through in their professional career, but that's not what I'm necessarily talking about. I'm referring it to the heart, or the individual, something in their personal life, their childhood. It's somebody who's been damaged. And I say that because I strongly believe that it takes a certain type of individual, right, a certain type of personality to do this job, or on a larger scale, to be a first responder, right? Like it's a certain type of character. Some people would summarize it as, like, an alpha personality to do this job, or to be a first responder. I don't like to use the word alpha, right?
I hate that word too.
Because I don't
do.
think it's that. So let me explain what I think, or my takeaway on it is I think it takes certain characteristics or personality traits that one would maybe look at and go, well, that's an alpha. I don't agree with that. But to have that, to be driven to do the job, I think it takes a damaged individual, somebody who's overcame something in their life and has discovered that why, or discovered what drives them to help others, to be in service to others, because that's what it boils down to. Like, you're having to put other people before yourself. That's what this job entails. That's what public safety, public service entails. So I say the key thing is damaged, like a damaged individual. And I'll tell you that I'm pretty damaged from childhood to from decisions that were out of my control. Like, I was a kid, so I didn't have any control over that. So, but I had that experience in life. Then going through life and growing into, an early adult. I mean, I'm still young. But I would say becoming the man I am today, I'm damaged from things that I've gone through, and I'll be honest, it's most of it is my own doing, right? Like I brought that trouble on myself, or made those mistakes, or caused myself that pain. And I tie it back to, because I think there's a certain type of individual that will be successful at this job, or that would sign up to be in service to somebody else. And I really drew this conclusion after I hit probably one of my lowest. I hit rock bottom in life, and that's when my mindset really changed, because before that I was still I think that I was still a good cop, and I was doing good, right? But I didn't know the why. I didn't get it. I didn't know why I was driven to make the decisions I was making on the job when it came to other people, why I was willing to just constantly put others before myself. And I didn't realize that before I hit rock bottom and had to go through therapy and reevaluate my life and really and see why I was making the decisions I was making, how I got to that point, right? And it all came down to I was, damaged. And And I say that's why it's important to have these conversations to get to know people, because I think there's two types of individuals. One who shouldn't be in law enforcement, and the other is somebody who should. And finding out that why is hard to accomplish. And I also contribute that to that's why we're pretty good at self-destructing. It's because we're that certain type of personality. We have those certain characteristic traits. And I discovered this in therapy, because when I hit rock bottom, I bought in. I'm like, there's my personal life matters. My kids, those things matter to me. I have to change. Kind of like you said, you didn't go through that change until fairly recent, a few years ago. That's me too. But in order for me to do that, I had to really work on me and myself. And so I really bought into therapy. I did a lot of trauma therapy. Worked with some psychodrama stuff, I bought into this. I brought into fixing myself. Through that, I remember, I had a main therapist that I saw, and, I was trying to keep my mind busy during this part of my life. So therapy was one way to do it, it was giving me something to do. Then work was an outlet, things like that. And at that time, I was also rethinking my career choices, right? Because I think sometimes in this profession, it's really easy to get get down about what we're doing
Oh yeah.
and feel defeated. So, you know, I've got my personal life. I've got me that I'm trying to tend to and working through, and you know, that also starts triggering, like, am I even happy? Am I doing the right thing? So my therapist was like, have you ever considered career therapy? And I'm like, career therapy? That's a thing? She's like, yeah, it's a thing, and it's a legit thing. Like, there's therapists that specialize in helping you discover what you would be good at or what you enjoy doing. Really what it boils down to is you're working on your characteristics and personality, right? And then you tie that to certain professions. So during this, we were, you know, I discovered it's called the drama triangle. It's literally a triangle. I was just looking it up because I didn't know like when this theory was introduced, but it was, you know, developed back in like the 1960s. Basically, it's a model of dysfunctional social interactions that illustrates power games that involves 3 roles or characteristics. And so in the drama triangle, and normally people, they, you know, when you talk about utilizing the drama triangle and these characteristics, you would be trying to like describe which one you are. Like, that's what you're trying to discover, right? So like you have a rescuer, a persecutor, and a victim. And so you would normally try to like tie yourself to one of those characteristic traits. And normally like people, it's normal to like, you're going to favor one of those traits or the other. And when I looked at that, I was thinking to myself, this is cops. And we're all 3. And it's just a never-ending constant cycle on the job and off the job. And that's how we like self-destruct in our personal lives too. And, you know, from on the job or like out there in the field, like we're always looking to be the rescuer. Who can I help? And then we do that all the time. And like that takes up a majority of our energy. Like that's our drive, our passion is to help,
So
to be
hypervigilance.
Yeah, to be of service. That's what drives us. We want to be that rescuer. But then I was like, well, why? Why do I want to be the rescuer? Why do I have to rescue everybody? And then I go, because I've been the victim. Like something in my life, I have made myself or thought that I'm the victim of something.
Do you
like
think that applies to everybody?
I'm damaged.
I mean, I don't know if they said that in, you know, if that
I think these things
if that apply to all. When I say everybody, I mean cops specifically. Like,
yes, yeah, I think so. I mean,
because I'll be honest with you, this is a deep conversation, but I wasn't a victim. Okay, I don't feel like I was a victim of anything except for my own behavior. For a while.
So being a victim, like I'm not saying like you're necessarily a victim of something that you realize. I'm saying the victim portion, like a lot of times we'll go through life and not even realize it, and that's like that. You've been through something in life that has changed you. That wasn't necessarily positive.
Yeah.
Right, but you had to experience it. That would classify as being a victim of something, right? Something was doing you wrong, and that's where I go back to damaged. You've experienced that before, but you've overcome it. I think that's what will build. That's what will influence that heart and that doing something for the right reasons, because you can put yourself in somebody else's shoes, or you've experienced that. Then the last one is the persecutor. So basically, like, it's always your fault. Like, you're the one going around telling people that. Or I use the example because, like, there is some leadership stuff in law enforcement where we talk about this, going through these cycles. The biggest reference is like being able to dim the light switch when you get home, turn it off when you get home, leave it at the door, leave it at the locker room. When you take the uniform off, take the uniform off. But it's more than that, like just leaving the job at home, or at the job when you get home. Because so we go from being rescuer, right? Constantly. Like that's our drive. That's why we want to do what we do. Because, like, we've been, I think, like, it's good if you can apply it. You've got some damage. And then I say that, that I circle back to we're the ones that, like, if we're going to something's going to go wrong 9 times out of 10, we're self-destructing. And when we do that, we like to be the persecutor and blame it on somebody else. We don't realize it. It's this constant cycle. And really understanding people and having those conversations and being able to talk about those things, it ties into mental health. I think what happens is we get stuck on the rescuer. Like that's our role. There's so much more. And tying into those personality traits, kind of went off on a little bit of a tangent there, but it kind of tied into, I asked you, like, if there's something that will contribute to that positive why, and that has made you realize that you've got the heart to do it, because it's something we can't teach people.
Yeah.
I can help you discover it. You got to know what you're looking for, right? That's why it's important to have those conversations.
Well, you're right, because, I mean, I kind of touched on this earlier, when it comes to hiring police officers, we're so procedurally driven with that literal process.
Yeah.
That these kinds of conversations,
we don't have these.
This doesn't happen,
like,
man.
the things
we're just trying to, okay, we got next one scheduled at 1:30, next one's at 2:30, and all you do is you have such a short interaction with these people. You think you've got them figured out, yay or nay, and then you farm them through a background process, and then you hire them, and you don't know who they are. You've done a background. I don't care how extensive a freaking background is. People carry things that no background process is going to uncover.
Good or bad.
Good or bad.
Yeah.
And the short time that we spend, in hiring these people, and that's kind of what started this whole conversation, was criminal justice reform. A part of that looks so different way up here. It is reform. What we're talking about right now, making these changes in criminal justice, law enforcement being a part of criminal justice, as strange as this sounds, that is part of the reform.
Well, I'm going to tell you,
to better it up here for these people that we interact with.
You'll never get to the bigger picture unless we start addressing what we're talking about. And it starts with the people.
But the question is that
not just the organization.
The bigger question here, I would say, would be getting these leaders within this profession to buy into this.
Well,
because this is
leaders.
This is crazy talk.
Not just the leaders, though. Not just administration in organization, or maybe your supervisors in organizations. getting the buy-in of
City government.
the
Yeah.
public, because everybody has a perception of what we're supposed to look like. And I'm going to tell you, if in order to get what we all want, which is, live in a safe town, low crime, you want good service, good people. When you pick up that phone and call 911 and need a police officer, you want somebody that's going to care no matter what. If that's what you want, I'm going to tell you right now, at face value, it might not be the prettiest thing.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's not going to be the image.
No,
And-
you're right.
and
It's,
you're
it's-
gonna-
it-
and
and
you're-
that's all. That's what we've turned into. Is also an image-driven.
And you're gonna
Profession.
you're gonna have to do things differently, because that's what it's gonna take. Because we've been doing the same thing over and over and over again, expecting different results.
Insanity.
Yeah, like, dude, when you talk about what's going wrong in this world, and in our society, politics, I'm gonna tell you one thing that plays a role in all of it. It's the criminal justice system. And I'm going to tell you something that plays a role in all of that. It's law enforcement. I'm going to tell you what plays a role in that is each individual officer. We got to start focusing on that. Focusing on who we're hiring, who we're bringing into the organization, picking the right people, but also not just stopping there, developing. And if somebody doesn't know the why, that's why it's key to like I said, I can help you discover it. I have found, good cops that I know, like good people, would say you're an example of that. A lot of people that I've worked with throughout my career. You ask me what makes just a good cop. It's a damaged one.
Mm-hmm.
Because that's what, I think that's what it takes to do this job successfully, and for the right reasons, and make decisions for the right reasons, so that you don't see what you saw coming across Facebook on that Facebook group, some 75-year-old man being arrested for that. That's crazy.
And this is foreign talk, because you won't hear this at an IACP conference.
No, we got super deep. I know I got super deep, because it's like, these are all things that go through our minds. But I'm gonna tell you, I feel like an outcast for thinking this way. But I think there's value in it.
It is, man. The things that we talked about, because we talk about change. We talk about wanting to make the difference. We can talk about problems till 6 o'clock in the morning if we wanted to.
I can pick apart
We
dang
can,
near anything.
I mean, we can talk about what problems there are, but bringing solutions to the table, and we are in a different world, and it calls for different approaches. Things that people like I said, this is somebody listening to this, that's in law enforcement, that's been in law enforcement for any length of time, who's just the cookie cutter cop, cookie cutter chief, administrator, whatever.
Just doing what they've been taught.
What are these guys talking about? But this is a solution to criminal justice reform. You can't, it has to start up front, because we're never going to be any good to anybody over here. We're going to continue to you're going to have those cops on TikTok and YouTube that are losing their freaking temper, and because they've lost their temper, then they had to pull their gun and shoot somebody, and then you're never going to bridge that gap.
We never build the trust
if you don't have that trust. Yeah. And so, as odd as it sounds, as different as it sounds, it is part of reform. This is part of reform.
The things we talk about and think about, like it could be foreign and just completely unheard of. I know, like within law enforcement, you know, like you said, we're not going to be able to sit around and have these conversations with just everybody because they look at us like, dude, none of that applies to what we do here. That's
Yeah.
not our mission. No, but it is.
So just keep doing the same thing. You know, the same exact thing.
All
It's
these
okay.
things, thinking about all of these things, that's what it I think that's what it takes to create that healthy culture and influence some change and start seeing things going in a different direction, because you know there's never, and you know, clearly I don't know everything. I'm just, the things I say and my opinions on this and my outlook on it, man, it's all from firsthand experience of what I've, you know, been through, or decisions I've made, struggles I've had in my career. Now, working with you and Phil and Justice and hearing some of these testimonies, and I hear these stories and I'm like, but why do we make those decisions, or why do we handle things that way? You know, having that, opening my eyes to a different perspective too. I still fall back on, like, all these things matter. Like, you gotta start getting personal, and we're gonna have to start focusing on, unfortunately, for a short period of time or long period of time, like, we're gonna have to start addressing some issues on the smaller level at the front end. So
No, I agree, man. And good. I mean, this was a good talk. I enjoy having these conversations, especially putting it out for people to hear at a later date when they listen. Somebody come across this and be like, "Oh man, you know, they're talking about real solutions, like change, not just talking about the problems. The problems got to be talked about, but you know, we also have to talk about what we can do to make a difference, and that's what we're here for. Failing Justice, and so great talk, man. Great podcast. And I want to thank everybody for tuning in. Whoever's tuning in, if there's anybody tuning in, and then whoever downloads this and listens at a later date, just thank you guys for the downloads and for listening. And we just hope that we can continue spreading the word. That's, like I said, that's why I'm doing what I'm doing this weekend. Tomorrow, I'm going, and I'm going to try to spread the word, and we obviously need help to do that. You know, you guys we're on all the social media platforms. Tell your friends, tell your family. YouTube, TikTok, Facebook. At Failing One Justice is the handle, and then failingjustice.org as well. And great show tonight.
Yeah,
and
man.
We'll see you guys next week.
Stay safe.
This is Failing Justice.